Gentlemen, happy National Recruiting Day. Signing Day. National Signing Day. Um, liked it a whole lot better when it was in February. I know the coaches
Yeah.
do as well. Uh, and this is supposed to be the early signing period, but it is basically the signing period. And most of Ohio State's class has been signed, sealed, and delivered. There's still one guy floating out there that we have questions about, but we're going to act like he's in the class right now just because he did make it nationally known on national television. We'll get into that in just a minute. But, guys, we are the official Ohio State podcast of Fansided and Scarlet and Game from Fansided. Head on over to scarletgame.com. Read up all about these recruits in this signing class that just happened today on National Signing Day. They also have other great stories as we prepare you for the Cotton Bowl that is going to be happening next week in 9 days as we record this on Wednesday evening. Gentlemen, how are we doing tonight? Happy National Signing Day, JR.
I'm good, man. It's been a fun day, I guess. A lot of good players that we got. We lost one player today, so that kind of stinks. But I think we'll be able to survive. So we didn't lose
Yep.
the most important guys.
Chris, happy National Signing Day to you.
You too, Eric. Of all things to lose, it was a receiver, right?
Right. And we still might flip a defensive lineman from the
That's
state of
right.
Ohio. So, I mean, that's still out there right now as well as we record this at 8 o'clock Eastern, p.m. Eastern here in Ohio. Today was a roller coaster ride of emotions. If you were on Ohio State Twitter, my gosh, the LJ needs to be fired, Ryan Day is Cooper to, oh my gosh, we pulled off a miracle. I mean, it was the craziest day of emotions on Twitter, and I'm sure we're going to talk about that. But here's how we're going to do this tonight. We're actually going to break this down by position. Each one of us has taken a position to talk about the recruits that we got at that position. And so without any further ado, JR, we're going to turn it over to you first to talk about the recruit I'm personally most excited about the best. He's got one of the best names in all of college football coming in next year. That's our quarterback, Aaron Nolan. So JR, take it away.
Yeah, it doesn't get much better than your name being Air. I know that's a nickname. His real name's Prentice, but it doesn't get much better being named Air as a quarterback. Listen, I've heard anybody and everybody talk about this kid, and the same thing that I've heard is, placement precision expert. And we had one of those here recently. Unfortunately, he didn't get the best recognition because one team was cheating and kind of ruined his reputation and ruined his Heisman chances. But other than that, Aaron Nolan is a fantastic prospect. I keep hearing everybody talk about how he should be a consensus 5-star, but of course you have On3 who barely has him in the top. Well, no, he's not even in the top 75. He's number 76 for them. It's 24/7 has him as number 57, so I don't know what they're doing. But ESPN, of all ratings, has him number 30, and then Rivals has him number 25. So eventually that averages him out into a 5-star. Thankfully, however, there are definitely some services that are definitely sleeping on him, but I just don't get it. The dude, everything you watch, everything you see, I know Michigan fans will tell you Jaden Davis had better stats. Jaden Davis was also playing toddlers compared to who Aaron Nolan was playing in his high school ball. So I wouldn't get hung up on the stats. I wouldn't get hung up on those things. If anything, try to find some footage of him at the Elite 11 because he really, really shined at the Elite 11. And he's one of those guys that he just kind of has the perfect skill set for Ryan Day to really mold and turn into something, I think.
JR, am I crazy if I told you that I'd rather have him than Dylan Raiola?
Well, no, because I think Aaron Nolan has a better head on his shoulders, and maybe not even that, but he has a more supportive family rather than Dylan Raiola. Because I honestly think if you got Dylan Raiola, you'd be back into the same situation with Kyle McCord, and maybe Dylan Raiola is more talented than Kyle McCord, but he brings in too much drama with his family and the leaving and the portal, all that stuff. That in my mind, I don't want that drama. I want a guy who's about the team and who just wants to win.
Yep. I also feel like watching his film, a lot of comparisons to CJ Stroud, a left-handed CJ
Mm-hmm.
Stroud. I think he might be a little bit more athletic with his feet. Am I crazy?
No, from the film that I've watched, he's definitely athletic. He doesn't get a chance to show it as much because of the offense that they run. They kind of want him to be a pocket passer down in Georgia. However, he does have the ability to be on the run. So I think you'll see more of that at Ohio State, kind of like CJ, but you won't see it the traditional way. You won't see it, like CJ when he was running up the field in Georgia. You'll probably see him more rolling out and getting time outside the pocket. But at the same time, he also is a quick decision maker, so he doesn't have to roll out all the time. That was one of my biggest things with Bryce Young is he didn't always make the quick decisions. And that's one of the reasons why he's currently struggling in the NFL is because he almost just relies on his ability to roll out when he doesn't feel confident about something. However, CJ Stroud was confident in his arm, and from everything I've seen with Air Nolan, he is confident in his arm and will make those quick decisions as well.
All right, let's move on to running back now, guys. And I'm going to take this one here, and I'm going to talk a little bit about James Peoples, the 4-star running back from San Antonio, Texas, top 100 recruit. 5'10", 192, not the tallest of guys, but we have a very good track record here, guys, of getting running backs from the state of Texas that do very well in Columbus, Ohio. Okay, so I'm all about this one. I think this kid's makeup is fantastic, both on and off the field. I think he's got a great head on his shoulders. And that's one of the themes for a lot of these recruits that committed today to Ohio State. They come from great backgrounds with great families. They're very smart, intelligent young men who do well in the classroom, who are well spoken in public when they do interviews. And it just so happens they're also some of the best athletes that are playing that played high school football this past year as well. And James Peoples is in that list. Absolutely. I love his running style. He's very quick, but he is a power runner. He's got some shiftiness about him, but he's not afraid to lower his head and get the tough yards. And so he is the quintessential 3-down back that you want to see in your backfield. I think James Peoples and Ryan Day even mentioned this in the press conference today. James Peoples has the ability to make an impact right away at Ohio State. I do not think he is in the 2 deep unless Travion Henderson decides to jet and go to the NFL, in which case I believe Dallin Hayden's running mate might end up being James Peoples at the beginning of the season. So keep your eye on that. We also picked up a second running back who is a little bit more of a dual threat also in the receiving game. And 3-star Sam Williams-Dixon, a little bit bigger at 5'11", 203, considered a burner. The national ranking's not very high at 594, but there's a reason for that. That is because he played for West Holmes High School, which is Amish country here in Ohio, okay? And then he transferred his senior year to Pickerington and played at the powerhouse here in Central Ohio. But by then, the word on him was that he didn't play against good competition, and so the recruiting kind of was a little bit behind on him. This is someone who I kind of envision in a Demario McCall kind of role. Someone who can maybe be in special teams right away, and then someone out of the backfield on third downs, on third and longs that you throw in there, and he might be able to pick up something on a screenplay or something of that nature, much like Demario McCall did as well. Of course, if you remember at the end of his career, he actually moved to the defensive side and played defensive back in his last year at Ohio State. I don't think Sam Williams-Dixon is going to be that, but I do believe that he has that dual threat ability. Now, before we turn it over to Chris to talk about wide receivers, I have a funny video that I'd like to show you. This is of the nation's #1 recruit who reaffirmed his commitment to Ohio State today and is currently, from all we can tell, signed but not signed.
Not
it's
signed.
really weird. But here is a video of Ryan Day's reaction when he found out that Jeremiah Smith reaffirmed his commitment to Ohio State.
So again, if you're joining us live, you're looking at Jeremiah Smith there. That's not only the number one wide receiver in the country, that's the number one player in the country, and we are awaiting his announcement down there in Florida, and we're going to it now.
The next 3 or 4 years.
Really?
Yeah, it's real.
There's pictures, there's video.
I'm nervous for you.
Yeah, if you want to take us through your emotions real quick, how you feeling?
You got to
The
address
floor is yours.
You got to address that one.
Yeah, well, I don't know if everything's in yet. Jerry, you got to check to make sure it's in.
Hey, Mike, you want to check with Justin?
Yeah, before I do something and get myself in trouble.
Well, I think they're still waiting for it to come in, Chris.
Yeah, as of 7:30, Eric, we still have not gotten the signed letter of intent in, and to my understanding, he has not signed an NIL deal as of this point. But you know what? We're just going to treat him like he is here. He's given a verbal commitment. He is a hard commit to OSU. And I'll tell you what, I'm excited to see this kid play. 6'3", 198 pounds, great size. Out of one of the I love the name of this city, Opaka, Florida, Eric. Opaka, he's the number one recruit in the nation. Good size, good hands, good speed. There is nothing to not like about this guy. Very strong when he goes up for the ball. Just a super, super talented young man. And I'll tell you, I am very excited to see him because I believe this guy coming in has the same type of size and I think a similar skill set to one Marvin Harrison Jr. So I am really excited to see what happens once he gets on the field.
Okay. Next guy up.
Milton Graham. Now, this guy, 6'1", 170 out of New Haven, Indiana. Now, Milton is a little bit more of a burner. He plays a little bit longer. He's kind of our speed guy, has great twitch, and does need to polish his route running up a little bit, I think. But other than that, really, a really good receiving prospect. I don't think he comes in quite as ready as what we have with Jeremiah Smith. But you know what? I think he's got the ability to really be a significant talent as he develops. He has great ability as far as high pointing the ball, good body awareness. And these guys that are coming in with this kind of talent, once Brian Hartline gets a hold of these guys and polishes these guys up, I think we're looking at two more just like we've had the last few years. We've got number one draft or first round draft picks written all over these guys.
All right, so we got the tight ends next. Max LeBlanc is a really, really good tight end. He doesn't quite get the recognition. However, he's kind of going to be able to do both things for you. The other guy we're going to talk about is a little bit more special, but, he has a great frame. He definitely has the body to be able to add the kind of poundage you need on him. So that way he not only is a receiving threat, but is a blocking threat as well. And unfortunately, that's something that Ohio State has missed on a little bit lately is tight ends who are able to block in the run game. Cade Stover put in a lot of effort for it, but it obviously was not his strong suit. So you like to see that effort. But I think Max LeBlanc is going to come in and he's going to be not only a willing blocker, but a more able blocker as well. And the thing is, he doesn't really do either one super great. So that's going to be kind of why his rating is a little bit lower. But again, once you get him in the system and they really make him out to who they want him to be, he's going to be able to be a really good tight end for Ohio State. All right, let's move on to the next guy, Demario Whitten. This is actually probably my third or fourth favorite get in the class, because the dude is incredibly slept on, and one of the main reasons why is because he's kind of positionless. Not only is he a tight end, but he also plays receiver as well. And that was why at the beginning I said I wasn't too concerned about losing Jeremiah McClellan. No offense to him. I think he's a very good player. I think he'll do well at Oregon. However, Demario Whitten is somebody who can be a wide receiver for you. I can definitely see him being a tight end slash a kind of bigger slot guy, which is something we've not traditionally seen a lot at Ohio State, but it's definitely something that we could use. This guy's going to be a really, really interesting tool to see what Brian Hartline can do with him if he does practice with the receivers enough and get that kind of training. I think that he's quicker than most tight ends, which puts him, makes him be able to be put out on the slot as well. And I forget who I was listening to today. I think it was one of the head 24/7 guys, but he was saying that if Demario Whitten is able to be used in the right way, he could be a superstar at Ohio State. He could be a receiver that Ohio State utilizes really, really well for a year or two and gets drafted really, really high because he kind of has that special body, that special talent for it. So this guy's going to be able to be used in a few different ways. I don't think he's going to be the traditional tight end. He's a little bit smaller. I don't know if you're going to want to be able to add that weight to him that needs to be added for a tight end. So I'll see him more as a tight end slash a slot receiver type of deal. And it's going to be really, really cool to see the way Ryan Day uses him.
I believe, didn't he just win the Army Bowl MVP?
Yes.
Yeah. Dude. That's legit.
And it's because, like I said, he doesn't have like a position. Like they put him as a tight end in 24/7 and on 3 and all those places, but at the end of the day, they can't like nail him down, which makes it really hard for them to evaluate him. But if you watch him play in a game, the dude is nearly unstoppable.
Mismatch problem.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. All right, let's move to the big uglies, because this is where Ohio State has struggled, and unfortunately, I would say they also struggled in recruiting the offensive line once again. Now, we got bodies, and they're gonna put my theory to the test about Midwest linemen, as opposed to going and down there and getting the big 4-star linemen from the South who are good at pass blocking but don't really know how to run block. These guys all know how to run block. Ian Moore, 4-star offensive lineman, almost became a top 100 recruit, one of the top offensive linemen in the Midwest, 6'5", 295, the second highest ranked recruit from the state of Indiana, played his high school ball at New Palestine, Indiana. Some are saying he's a plug and play. I think he probably needs at least 1 year of development, maybe 2, before he becomes a starting tackle. And if that doesn't work, I think you kick him inside and he's a good 2 to 3 year starter at guard. But I believe they honestly are going to give him the first crack at being left tackle from this class, if not right tackle. And the other one they're going to go with is one of the 2 twins from here in the state of Ohio. This one being Deontay Armstrong. Devontae, his younger brother, is the guard. Deontay is the tackle. So if you can't tell them apart because they're identical twins, Deontay is the tackle, Devontae is the guard, okay? 6'6", 280, has really grown into his body, has shot up there in the past few years. Plays for a state championship team there in Lakewood, Ohio. This is a super athletic kid who is going to, no doubt, in my opinion, be a tackle and probably a starting tackle within year number 3 at Ohio State. He might be a redshirt sophomore when he breaks that starting lineup, but I got to be honest with you. I know Ian Moore's considered more of the slam dunk. I think Deontay Armstrong's ceiling might be a little bit higher. This is the type of kid who, when he fills out that body and he gets in the body by Mickey program and adds some strength to this huge frame of his and these ginormous long arms, he is going to be a force at left tackle at Ohio State. Let's look at his little twin brother here. I say little because he's 6'5". He's got an inch shorter than his brother. But Devontae is your guard, all right? And he plays with a lot of juice. This kid has got a lot of fire, a lot of will about him. If there's one kid who people say, I just don't think he's going to have it, I think this kid wills himself to someday being a starter beside his brother on the offensive line. I really do. So even though Deontay's the one that has a little bit better measurables, I think Devontae's heart, his grit, this is the type of kid that I always scream about that we don't recruit, we don't get. He goes to Michigan or Michigan State and then just gives us nightmares for years because we didn't recruit him and we didn't bring him to Columbus. Thankfully, we got him. And so we got both the Armstrong brothers. Now, this one is very interesting. This was a go and get late type of recruit here. As we move on to the next slide, and Evie Mux doesn't want to work with me. Here we go. Gabe Van Sickle, 3-star offensive lineman, 6'5", 283. As you can see, his national ranking not very good at 605 from Coopersville, stayed up north. Was committed to Northwestern, decommitted, came over to Ohio State after we lost Mark Nave, who decommitted and ended up going to Kentucky. We go out and grab Gabe Van Sickle to replace him. This is a project. I think Gabe understands that he's going to have to be a project. But let me throw this little tidbit at you. Northwestern typically recruits offensive linemen very well from the Midwest who are low 3-star guys who end up developing and becoming very good starters in the Big Ten. So if Northwestern was after him, I think we give him a chance. So let's see how this goes for Gabe. Maybe by the time he's a redshirt junior, he could get in there and jump in there as a guard or even play center possibly. So there is that advantage for him as well. He might be able to snap the football. Smart kid if he was going to Northwestern, right? Usually you want your centers to be very smart. Let's take a quick commercial break. When we come back, we're going to jump over to the defensive side of the ball. The OHIO podcast is brought to you by Mastermind. Mastermind specializes in 360-degree high-definition mobile video mapping, GIS integration, and traffic safety studies. Mastermind cares about traffic safety and keeping you safe on the roadway. Visit Mastermind at onlinemastermind.com.
All right, guys, so we are back, and we're going to start with the defensive line here. And, guys, this is the one that might, everybody's excited about Jeremiah Smith, myself included, but I am really excited about Edric Houston. Edric Houston is a big guy, 6'3", 265, great first step, explosive. He's great in backside pursuit. He's just all over the field. He comes in. He was a 4-star, ranked 33rd nationally, 5th out of the state of Georgia, 7th among defensive linemen. And I'll tell you, he just is explosive, good power, plays long, has good use of his hands, good footwork. That probably goes back to the fact that he actually ran track as well as being a wrestler, so he knows how to throw people around. I think this guy is a huge get for us on the defensive line. This is a guy who I think is going to come in and make an impact sooner rather than later. Somebody I'm really excited to see. He comes in, he does most of his damage off the edge at the high school level. And I imagine we'll probably see him there, but if he puts a little size on, he can play in multiple spots along that defensive line. Very versatile. So next we have, if my slide comes with me.
There you go. It's on there.
Is it? Okay, because I'm still showing Edric on mine. Okay. Next, we have Eric Mensah. Eric Mensah is out of Stafford, Virginia. He comes in. He is ranked 780th nationally, 90th among defensive linemen, 13th out of the state of Virginia. Honestly, this guy I see is a little bit more of a project player. He has the ability to make plays, but not overwhelming speed. Most of what he does as far as pass rusher is power rush. Not somebody who I think is going to be playing right away. He's somebody who I think is going to add a little depth and maybe, by junior year might actually see the playing field as a starter. So that is our 2 defensive line commits. JR?
All right, let's get to the linebackers. Our first linebacker is Payton Pierce. Excuse me, sorry. Payton Pierce, he is a middle linebacker type. He is going to be kind of your Tommy Eichenberg type of guy who's going to be able to be in the middle, really be that mind guy that Jim Knowles talks a lot about. James Laurinaitis is very, very high on this kid. Now, he doesn't have the highest ranking ever. Part of the reason for that is I believe it was his junior year. He was out most of the year with an injury. However, he did rise in the rankings his senior year, playing better. But of course, when you're injured for an entire year, that limits how much they can grade you on. So he had a very successful team. He tallied 131 tackles, 21 tackles for loss, and 6 sacks as just a sophomore in 2021. So a very, very special player who is like I said before on some of the other players, he's kind of slept on. He could miss out on a little bit of that development in high school because of his injury, so that might impact him here. But still, a kid who knows who knows football and will do a good job there. All right, let's move on to the next one, Garrett Stover. Garrett Stover is very interesting to me because if you look on 24/7, all these places, a lot of them have him listed as a safety. Ohio State wants to utilize him as a linebacker. I anticipate that probably means that Jim Knowles wants to put some weight on him, maybe make him a little bit bigger, might want to use him in kind of that linebacker / safety role, kind of like what he did with Sonny Styles. And one of the reasons why they have him listed as a safety is because of his speed and his athleticism. The kid can run a 4.45, which is pretty unheard of for a linebacker. That's very fast for a linebacker and good for him. So it's also possible that he plays safety. It's also possible that he is kind of that third linebacker / safety guy. We'll see what Ohio State does with him. I like to think that they'll probably put him as the linebacker, but just a super athletic kid, the cousin of Cade Stover. So bringing the Stover name back to Ohio State after Cade moves on, and I'm sure we'll have stories about the farm or something like that with him, like we had with Cade.
Well, I actually do have some stories on him.
Okay.
It's not a farm, but his dad owns an excavating company. So if Cade was the combine, then we might have the bulldozer now. Garrett the
go.
Bulldozer Stover. Bulldozer Stover. I love it. There we go.
I'm for it.
From the combine to the bulldozer. All right, let's talk about the position that Ohio State absolutely cleaned up on in this recruiting cycle. And it has everything to do with this guy over here, Aaron Scott. He is the #1 recruit from the state of Ohio in the 2024 cycle, a 5-star cornerback who shunned that state up north and the team up north. When they thought they were going to get him, he said, nuh-uh. Actually, even trolled Jim Harbaugh when he decided to commit to Ohio State, which I loved. Aaron Scott has got great size at 6'2", 190 pounds, tracks the football incredibly well, knows how to turn his head when he's actually in pursuit and covering a wide receiver and look for the football. This kid is going to see the field from day #1. Now, I'm not saying he's going to go out there and be a starter next year, but I do believe he is probably in the 2 deep and will find playing time not only in special teams, but I believe he possibly could be rotated with the cornerbacks from day #1. You don't bring a 5-star in like that who's this good, a top 50 kid in the nation, 34th nationally according to the 247 Sports Composite, and not get him on the field. You got to find ways to get him on the field, and I believe Aaron Scott is going to do that for the Buckeyes. Now, that's not to say that this guy right here isn't good as well and could possibly be that person I just spoke of too. Bryce West, 4-star cornerback / safety, 5'11", 177, not as good size as Aaron Scott, but I love this kid's film. Played in Glenville, so you got that pipeline flowing well. Is the teammate for the tight end we spoke of earlier there, JR, help me out.
Stover. What was the other one? Pierce.
No, the tight end,
Oh, the tight end, Whitten. Sorry,
Whitten, yes. What's his first?
linebacker.
Demarion Whitten. I was almost said Demario, and I'm like, that's not it. Whitten, thank you. They're teammates for Glenville. So Terry, you got Glenn Senior up there just pumping out talent, Division I talent again, and Ohio State's tapping into that pipeline. I love it. Bryce West, another great film. I would not be shocked one bit if he is also on the field in day number 1. Now, I just don't think I think Aaron Scott's got the size, but maybe, possibly, Bryce West gets moved to safety here. That's a possibility. But I would love to see both these guys just become CB1 and CB2 out there on the field within the next couple years because they're that good. And then we have one more cornerback to speak of, Miles Luckart, a 4-star cornerback, 5'10", 185. He's from the desert. We went out to Chandler, Arizona to pull up this cat and decided to bring him over to the Buckeye State. So, again, not great size, but I do believe that Miles Luckart has got a future. He's just going to be a little bit more of a developmental guy than the other two, but we've been surprised before. Sometimes these guys develop more in this offseason than we realize. We'll see if Miles, I'm not sure if he's a part of those who'll be able to graduate right away and come to Columbus in January. I hope he does. That seems to help their development out immensely going into that freshman year. But be on the lookout for Miles Luckart as well. Even though he's ranked 368th nationally, he is no pushover. He is also very good film as well his junior year that I've watched. So we'll see if Miles Luckart can develop. He's not the big two at cornerback that I just spoke of, but having him as a fallback in case one of those other guys either doesn't develop, B, has an injury, or C, hits the portal, because we all know that's a possibility now. You have a guy like this who can jump in and play right away as well. All right, let's take a look at safety, Chris.
Okay, Eric, and we've got two at the safety position. First one to talk about is Jaylen McLean. He's a 6 foot, 185-pound safety out of Seton Hall Prep in West Orange, New Jersey. Comes in ranked 3rd out of the state of New Jersey, 28th among safeties, 269th overall. He came in as a 4-star according to the 247 composite. Good size, a little bit light, but has a frame that he can play long. Has good speed overall. Has I believe an 11:06. I believe was his 100-meter time, if I'm not mistaken. So this is a guy who can move down the field. He is a physical safety, but you know what? When he's in coverage, he actually is pretty fluid. Good movement with the hips, good back pedal. But one thing he does have to improve on a little bit, guys, is as I'm watching the film, it looks like it takes him some time to get involved if the play's not coming right at him. He's a guy that attacks the run game when it's coming at him, and he really needs to develop getting more involved quicker when the play is on the opposite side of the field. Other than that, this guy looks like a pretty solid prospect.
Chris, very interesting about these guys. These defensive backs who come from New Jersey, I've noticed, they all hit, man.
Oh, they lay the wood, no doubt about it. This kid is a physical kid. When he gets you in his sights, you're going to remember getting hit. And I love it.
Some possible targeting calls in the future for one Jaylen McLean.
Hey, you know what? I'll take it. If it's in the process of being aggressive and not aiming to hurt somebody, I'm okay with it.
All right.
The other guy we got is a 3-star out of Fort Myers, Florida. That is Leroy Roker. He's a 6'1", 170-pound safety. He comes in ranked 974th nationally, 106th among safeties, and 132nd out of the state of Florida. This guy, he was recruited by Iowa, recruited by the U, and recruited by Old Dominion. So these are some schools who actually have some, history as far as having some pretty decent safeties come out. Not a whole lot out there about Leroy that I've seen. I've watched his film, and I mean, he looks solid, but nothing I'm overly impressed by. Seems to have fairly decent speed. Um, and, you know, his technique as far as tackling goes is solid. But, you know, I think this is a guy who's going to take a lot of development time. I don't see him being somebody who's going to come in and make an impact anytime soon. He's somebody that I see Perry Eliano, you know, really having to develop, and maybe again by that third, fourth year in the program, he's ready to make a step up and move into the starting lineup, or at least into the two deep.
All right, taking a look at the rankings for this class of 2024, this is the fourth ranked class nationally overall, according to the 247 Sports Composite rankings. However, they are ranked second overall nationally based on average recruit ranking. So, in other words, the three ahead of us, Georgia, Alabama, the U, all of them have like 27 or more recruits. We have 21. That's the difference. But our average ranking is second only to Georgia and right ahead of Alabama. We're the first ranked class in the Big Ten. Right behind us is newly joined Oregon. Oregon is the second in the class. If you're looking for the next,
you're welcome, Oregon.
Next in the class would be that state up north, the team up north, and Penn State, but they are down to, I believe, 14th and 15th overall nationally. So in the top 10 in the top 10 nationally, the Big Ten, you got two, Ohio State and Oregon. So we'll see how that goes in the future. Five-star recruits in this class, according to the 247 Sports Composite rankings. That's the most in the nation. 7 recruits from the state of Ohio. Still not enough, if you ask me. I'd like to see that number closer to 9 or 10. Jim Tressel would look at that and say, this is why you're not winning that game at the end of the year. 11 offensive and 9 defensive recruits, and I know that only comes out to 20. One of the recruits that we're counting in the 21 is a long snapper, the second-ranked highest long snapper in the nation, but he is a preferred walk-on this first year, so he does not have a Scully at this time, so that's why I'm not counting it. So those are your rankings according to 247 Sports Composites. Guys, what are your initial thoughts overall for this class? JR, I'll start with you.
Well, I agree. I think 7 is too few Ohio guys to have in this class, especially when you're only signing 20 or 21, depending on what happens with Jeremiah Smith. But to me, you needed to get a few more of those developmental guys. Don't get me wrong; I'm happy with the guys we got, but I wish they would have gotten, a Coy Beasley. I mean, Purdue. I know they went after him, and he stuck with Purdue, but
Minnesota, wasn't it?
Minnesota.
No, that's Coy Parrish, I think. I don't think he's an Ohio kid, is he?
Oh, no. You're right. No, he's not. Yes, Coy Beasley but it's like Ohio State never even really shot their shot with Beasley.
I heard that they went after him. I mean, I give Ryan Walters his credit. I heard that they went after him after he committed, and he's a safety. It was after they missed on KJ Bolden. They went after him, and he basically he told him, no, you didn't want me before. Purdue wanted me, and so this kind of approach that Ohio State has where they offer very few guys and they go back and check in on them. I think players have more power nowadays than they used to. And so I think that, I appreciate that Ohio State doesn't just offer 300 guys like Michigan does, because Michigan is just hopeful that anybody will come to their school because they just are terrible at recruiting. They're barely top 20 and they've been in the playoffs the last 3 years. So the cheating hasn't done much for you, Jim, in the recruiting at least. But to me, you have to get a guy like that. Reggie Powers decommitted from Michigan State, and it's actually it is totally inexcusable to lose Jordan Marshall to Michigan. That is a direct result of us losing to them the past 2 years and Ryan Day not putting enough emphasis on the running game. Don't get me wrong, I like the passing game, and I think that is excellent. However, the dude's Mr. Football in Ohio. I don't think he's the best player in Ohio, but still, he's Mr. Football in Ohio. He's a running back. That's what Ohio State is known for. To me, that is inexcusable. This class is not perfect because of that. Ohio State should have Jordan Marshall, and that is a direct failure on Ryan Day's part that he did not get that done.
Chris, how do you think this class, overall thoughts with this class?
Well, I'm with you and JR both. I really would love to see more Ohio kids in this class. Um, I love the fact that we did keep the twins at home, but overall, I'm still seeing that we have what 5 5 stars in this class. Again, 2 of them are receivers. As much as I love our passing game, as much as I love our high-powered offense and the receivers, we've got to start getting some of those 5 star guys along that offensive line. That's the biggest, I think, struggle for us right now. But overall, I mean, the talent we got is good. I love the potential of Aaron Nolan. If Jeremiah Smith comes through, like I said, I think this is a guy that could be just as good as Marvin Harrison Jr. We got Edric. We were able to keep hold of him. I really think that he is going to be an impact player, like I said, much sooner rather than later. I think we got some decent depth guys at the safety position. I don't think they're anybody who's going to come in and press right away for a starting job, but I think it was a solid recruiting class. I still think we're having some struggles in some key areas and maybe overemphasizing other areas. But at the same time, when you're the second-rated recruiting class in the country, it's kind of hard to argue.
Real fast before we let JR take off, he's got another podcast that he needs to host, the Big Ten Huddle. So my theory on what happened in this recruiting class, if you follow the so-called recruiting experts, you would have thought Ohio State was losing everything. We did lose one recruit to Oregon. However, Jeremiah Smith admitted today he wasn't sure if he was going to choose Ohio State or Miami, just like in the video you saw. He had 2 hats in that bag, he said, and he really wasn't sure who he was going to choose until right before he made that announcement. Hopefully he signs and all is well with the world. If not, hopefully we still get him, right? Because if he doesn't sign, then we might be seeing him later than what we thought in the second cycle. He could sit there and go back and forth for the rest of the school year if he wanted to. He's the number 1 kid in the entire class. We thought we were going to lose Edric Houston to Alabama. So 2 of the 5-star guys we thought we were going to lose, according to the experts. There was a call that went out by the 1870 Society, which is Ohio State football's collective NIL partner, who called out Buckeye Nation to donate money. Obviously, what happened, if you read between the lines, is we got in a bidding war for some guys with some other schools. And based off the fact that both those guys, Smith and Houston, decided to remain with Ohio State, I have to feel that Buckeye Nation came to the plate and stepped up, and we at least matched offers that were coming from Alabama and Miami. If you watched what happened today in signing day down in Florida, the Gators got raped today. Almost all their commits were taken away. At Florida State had a ton of flips today. Miami came in and started offering money left and right to people. The safety, KJ, was it Bolden? Bolted from Florida State, went to Alabama. Ohio State, for all of the worry in Buckeye Nation that our NIL is falling behind, and I still think that there's some cracks in that foundation that need to be looked at moving forward. My theory is that Buckeye Nation came in and saved the day. I don't know what those donation numbers are. I would like to see what they were in the last 48 hours. They were significant. That's my theory on how Ohio State was able to save this recruiting class for Ryan Day, as he fainted there at the podium today. JR, your thoughts on that, and do you have any other theories before we let you go?
Well, number one, you said KJ Bolden went to Alabama. He went to Georgia.
Georgia.
Sure.
They're all the same hillbillies to me.
Right. Yeah, they're down in the South and they're really good. So
Georgia, you are correct by that. Thank you.
yeah, I just want to make sure I corrected that. Number two, I am with you. I've been pretty vocal. I don't know about pretty vocal. I've sent out a couple tweets about it on social media that I think it's great that the fans are donating and a part of NIL. I think that the fans need to be a part of it, and it helps us feel like we have a little bit more ownership of supporting the team and stuff like that. However, I mean, at the same time, these NIL collectives got to get themselves together. I mean, what's easier, getting 1,000 people to donate $25, or getting 5 people to donate $500,000. I mean, if you go to those big donors and you get those guys to make big donations, your NIL is going to be that much better. Look at the schools that are excelling in NIL the most. You have Oregon, who has Nike backing them. Phil Knight is there, and I'm sure Phil Knight has got plenty of buddies that are donating with him. Miami has John Ruiz. What's he have, that watch company or something like that, or whatever?
Yeah.
And I'm sure he's got his buddy. Ohio State needs to dip into some of these millionaires and not just get them to donate, but also get them and their buddies to be donating and putting toward the program as well. I'm not saying they need to be given $5 million a year, but I am saying that, get some larger chunks out of these guys, and then you might not find yourself in a situation where you're having to go to the fans and ask them to, give $25 each or something like that, which again, I'm not against. I think that's good, and I think that is fun for the fans in some ways to be able to do that. I just think if NIL is going to be a top tier thing, which we want everything in Ohio State football to be top tier, we have to look at not just getting the fans involved, but getting some of those larger donors involved. And from what I hear, that's a Gene Smith issue. And so I just hope that whoever comes in and fills in for Gene Smith after he is gone corrects that, because we can't be messing up NIL.
I wrote down NIL issues. That'll be something we cover on a live show down the road, JR.
And there's not too many issues. We did get the second class, right? I mean, it's not like the sky is falling, but it's just looking ahead to the future.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Chris, you got anything else for JR before we let him go?
Well, nope. I just agree with pretty much everything he said. I agree with what you said about Buckeye Nation really stepping up. I think JR is right. I think it's a great thing to be a part of. Gives us a little bit more encouragement to hold these guys accountable out there on the field.
Apparently, we're all terrible people for holding Kyle McCord.
We're awful people. Yeah, I've been told twice today that we're awful people on this podcast for the way we treated Kyle McCord.
Really?
Oh, and my cousin was one of them, by the way.
Yeah.
But that having been said, I just go back to this: NIL, the transfer portal, they're destroying college football.
All right, Chris and I are going to hang around. JR, have a good show. Be looking forward to seeing that in a few minutes.